Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're here for another edition of NSR Wrestling. We're going a little bit different this time, flipping the script a little bit. We're going to talk about the independent wrestling scene versus the territories back in the day. Differences, similarities, all that. I'm Pac.
I'm Chris.
Well, let's just dive right into it.
It's an exciting topic because it's like the same concept but like different when you look at an independent compared to a territory. Because there still are territories today within the NWA, but it's all independents. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting how that all kind of came to be. But
and independents, in essence, are a lot smaller versions of territories.
Exactly.
Now, but they're also scattered because if you think about take ECW for example. They had Eastern Pennsylvania, but they were pulling people from Western PA. They were pulling people from New York.
Mm-hmm.
But then, remember when they went to Florida and they had a crowd there? And then also, towards the end, they were getting that hard rock crowd out in either Vegas or California whenever they had it.
Well, it shows you how protected the business was when there was the territories, because nowadays, independents are on every block compared to then.
A lot of that can be contributed to the internet, though.
Exactly.
Virtually all of it.
And even with this, there's almost like an underneath independent, which is the backyarder type version where they're sort of pro, but they're not, and they try to do shows.
Moves and they just try to get their stuff distributed, and it just ends up with infections from light tubes.
Exactly. Or you'll get a group that's, they say they're independents, but they're really backyarders. They're just backyarders with a ring, and they'll have a show in a gym with like 10 people.
Essentially, yeah.
So there's that too, but I think territories overall were stronger. Just because, like, the talent you had at the time, and there was just so many territories that were, like, how do I compare it? It's like...
Well, they had bigger financial backers.
Exactly. Yeah, there was money there. They were, like, almost separate federation type, They're almost like, like a big organization when you think about it. Like, there's a WWF, but yes, there was another territory called the NWA, which was, in Minnesota. That was huge.
And
the
don't
NWA.
Forget, what we saw more was... What we see with the indies is we see a lot of people, granted, a lot of them are from the region, but we get people from all over the place, whereas with territories, we had a lot more homegrown talent being used by the promotion in that area. Like, take Minnesota, perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Perfect.
Yep.
We had, was Scott Hall from Minnesota?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was there. I don't know if he's from Minnesota, but he was there.
Well, we had him, we had
Rick Rude,
Kevin Nash was from Detroit.
Mm-hmm. The Berserker. Barry Darso, so you had a lot of guys there.
Yeah, basically a lot of the AWA, their top guys, in Shawn Michaels' book, he talked about it and how, a lot of them had originally been from Minnesota.
Yeah, they were all there. It was a strong territory for those guys to really build their skills and learn the business.
And it really gave you more of a distinct, each one had their own distinct TV audience and taping style and, just their own wrestling style and whatnot.
Which was nice because, you didn't have this, that's the problem with the independents. A lot of them don't have identities. You can just tell they're just a cluster and it's just a mess. And,
no, a lot of them don't.
Yeah, it's a flim-flam production and they just throw matches together and they have high flyers and fat people and there's just no identity.
Or, I'll give you the perfect example. ROH, they try to make themselves more like mixed martial arts even though they're pro wrestling. It's like, you gotta kind of get with the times and be a little bit more kayfabe,
Yeah, they're kind of like the straight wrestling, which in today's era is good, but it can get really boring too.
Well, they're not even just straight wrestling. They're all about doing the ridiculous kicks, and then you hit somebody with a move that should put the guy in the hospital for 3 days, and he kicks out at 1.5.
I don't like that
stuff.
It
doesn't sell it at all. I don't like it.
You're ruining the mystique.
Of the match.
The mystique of wrestling. Yeah, it's bad. Like with territories, it's interesting because most of them had television, and independents, a lot of them don't. Territories had strong announcers. Independents, I guarantee you don't. I've seen them and I've heard them horrendous.
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
Some of the worst announcers come from independents. And the territories, they had real homegrown talent.
I've also heard a lot of dead air with independents.
Dead air, yeah.
Run out of things to say right after a move, and they'll be like, oh, and they'll be fumbling for the name of the move.
Yeah.
And then they'll refer to it by the WWE name for the move instead of the actual name. They'll be like, he hit him with a rock bottom. Well, no, that's a Uranagi. You're not allowed to call that a rock bottom.
And a lot of the independents were part of the NWA, which you have an announcer like Gordon Soley, and then you got some guy like Joe Blow who can't even announce a program. There's no difference. And it's interesting with the territories because a lot of them, had professional financial backing and they had a strong being, whereas like these independents are just flim-flam operations, a lot of them, and they just come and go.
The territories actually cared about expanding a little bit. Not so much that they would infringe on somebody else's definite territory, but they would try to draw the fringe members of that audience and get them into there. Whereas your independents, you can go to the same show for 3 years and nothing has changed, except they might have, moved buildings. They didn't get an extra one, they just moved.
Yeah, and a lot of them, like here where we live, they don't go into certain areas, and it's weird. Just around town, they don't. So it's just
they don't even try.
No.
We even used to have an arena in Glassport called the Bear Cave. God knows why, but I was actually able to see a show there, and they only went there once and never went back. Now I'm not sure if it's ever going to be open again or whatnot, but it's just like they'd be in certain areas and then they just disappear. Penn Atlantic,
I remember them,
which PWX and CWF used to be affiliated with. A lot of the members. They used to be out off of Route 48 and whatnot. I remember going to see them, and now they don't even run shows out there anymore, I don't think. Well, they're not even in existence.
Where's Route 48 at, actually?
It runs right through McKeesport and Wayne.
Okay, that way. Yeah, because I used to watch it on television. It used to be on late at night. That's the thing, though. A lot of these independents are on late at night or early in the morning. You can't watch them. A lot of them just aren't on. You have to go on the internet to watch
IWC is one of the notable ones that used to have a TV deal. Back when we had WPGN, they were actually on the same network as Impact for a while.
Yeah.
And the Puerto Rican wrestling as well.
Yeah, that was all. I love that because that brought, and they had like some old stuff too. And
it was a nice block because you could watch like the Puerto Rican one, then IWC, then TNA.
That was great. It was all local. It'd be on for like 3 hours. You just watch wrestling. It was like Saturday nights. It was amazing. Mm-hmm. That was a lot of my Saturday nights in high school were wasted doing that.
Yeah, same here.
Chris, you want to go out? Nah, I'm going to watch wrestling.
Mostly for me, it was elementary school when I used to sleep over at my grandma's, and I'd be posted up from 8 p.m. until 11 p.m. in front of the TV. I taped
a lot of those too. Yeah, that's a big difference to the internet. Back then with the independents, a lot of times you didn't even have television, like cable. That is kind of like what I meant.
You'd have your taping, but they were public access or whatever your local networks were. None of them were national.
And a lot of times, sometimes these territories didn't even have television. Like they wouldn't even be on. It's like it was amazing for me to hear these stories that Ole Anderson and some other wrestlers would tell, like where these guys would make these storylines last for weeks, and they would go to the different parts of the country, and people would be knowing about it. People would heard about these feuds, and they would just keep it going and keep the crowds coming and keep them hot and keep the money coming in. It's just amazing how all that worked without the internet and television.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, I think you would see a lot more print media at that time.
Yeah, print media was big.
There were a lot of different wrestling magazines, and that's another show we could get into is past wrestling magazines that are no longer in existence that were really, really good.
Yeah.
And, some of the artwork and photography from them. Like, I still have some of my old ones, like some of, like, the Pro Wrestling Illustrated and whatnot.
Yeah, I have a lot of those, too. I got to dig out. But, yeah, you're right about print. Like, newspaper, posters, flyers, things like that.
Word of mouth. Posters and whatnot. Now they don't have that much of an impact, and it's like people never notice a paper sign anywhere.
Well, that's the problem I say with TNA. There's supposed to be this multi-world media company. When they come here to Pittsburgh, and they go to Washington because they never actually come into Pittsburgh, but they don't have any radio, they don't have any television, maybe a little bit of television.
Yeah, a little bit of television, okay. Because I always see it during WWE programming when I'm watching it and I laugh.
Never any radio, never any live.
Kurt Angle's from Pittsburgh.
He
doesn't go on any of the radio stations.
Yeah, nothing on the radio stations.
Zima Ion's from the Mon Valley.
Yeah, nothing on the radio, nothing on a local television station promoting or the news promoting the show or having a superstar on one of the talk shows to promote the show. Nothing like that. No posters, no flyers.
No AJ Styles, no anybody.
Well, they just don't have anything. They have nothing except the commercial, once in a while. It's poor marketing, and it's
during either ROH or WWE, and it's ridiculous.
I don't understand why no one can come into Pittsburgh and actually have a show in Pittsburgh. What is the deal? Is it too much money? Does McMahon own something? What?
Trying to get in the console is a pain, though.
Well, I know that.
But there's still other arenas.
Columbus Center, there's...
Where the Panthers play basketball, that's always available.
Anywhere.
The Peterson Event Center.
Yeah, there's even, I'm sure they could probably get... I don't know what else is around here. I'm trying to think. There's a lot of, different places. I'm sure something would... sometimes
even some of these nightclubs almost look big enough that you could throw a ring in there if the bar wasn't so long.
Exactly.
Like the beach club, you could throw a ring in there and put some chairs.
Definitely.
The ceiling wasn't so low.
What about down in Station Square? Isn't there some kind of...
That's actually where I was talking about.
Yeah, down there.
I don't know. There should be.
Isn't there some kind of entertainment area?
Yeah, that big lot.
Yeah, have it there. I don't know. There always seems to be some kind of problem.
Or stage AE or something.
Because I hate when they say they're coming to Pittsburgh, but they're not. They're coming like 45 to an hour out of Pittsburgh. It's not Pittsburgh. It's somewhere else.
They're coming to like the suburbs of Monroeville.
Yeah, it's... God.
Or Washington County, which isn't Pittsburgh.
But yeah, I mean...
Route 19 might take you to Pittsburgh, but it's not Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it annoys the hell out of me. Independent wrestling, though, I would say, there's just so many different organizations out there.
There's one that you and I were really wondering about. How in the world does an organization based out of Oklahoma get a TV deal for the Philadelphia area that somehow we in Pittsburgh get that channel on 188? And we get this Oklahoma wrestling on a Philadelphia channel. It makes no sense to me.
At least they put like an effort into it. Geez, I mean, they're doing better than some of the other shows we've seen around here, I mean...
Yeah, locally. I mean, we still laugh at them for how bad they are.
Yeah, but their promotion's awesome.
The promotion is Impact Zone Wrestling.
Yeah.
They actually do have a couple of guys with talent, and then they have other guys that look like bootlegs of normal wrestlers that you'd normally recognize. Like, they have a Christopher Daniels doppelganger, but he's not as good of a wrestler.
They have a good marketing plan, obviously, because look who they're reaching. So
I think they only get like 7 votes though when they ask you to go on like Twitter or Facebook, and I'm pretty sure it's just the owner's daughter like voting for each one.
At least they're trying.
All their votes end up being a massive compromise. Whenever I watch the show, like they were looking for a name for the new tag team, and it was like, do you want them to be the Natural Born Leaders or the Hype Section? So the tag team name ended up being this long, convoluted Natural Born Leaders of the Hype Section. I'm like, you just came up with that yourself, didn't you?
That's a mouthful there. Here's a question. Isn't it, well, really it's a fact, but the NBA is still around, and they have their own little territory thing, but really it's just a bunch of independents. So it's interesting to see how that happens.
They identify themselves as a world title, which I don't understand.
Well, the problem with them is...
If you can't afford a plane ticket for your champion and challenger, it shouldn't be called a world title.
Well, like, that's the problem. Like, they had, Adam Pearce and Cabana, a great feud that no one saw. I mean, NWA, that's another topic again. We can go back and revisit that. That's just a car wreck. But... they still kind of do their own territory thing within their own
And it's not
group.
Like they're bereft of talent. Yeah, some of their guys are a little older, but I mean, as recently as, 4 or 5 years ago, they had guys, from the Naturals and whatnot that were doing well.
Yeah, I don't know what their issue is, but... like, I mean, territories back in the day, though...
Oh, I don't think they should have pressured TNA and made them drop the NWA title. I think that got them a lot of exposure.
I think that was a bad move, too. I don't know why. But see, I heard that, I watched that whole video, and... the commissioner, whatever, said that they wanted some of their guys, like Adam Pearce and some others, to get title shots. But I'm like, it's hard to do that when these guys... I think what they meant was they didn't want them to come on Impact per se, but just go around the territories and have these matches. But I guess Jarrett didn't want to do it or whatever.
Even still, though, I mean, think about some of the matches we had to sit through on FSN that were title matches. I mean, why couldn't you give that guy a shot? Hector Garza got a title shot on TV
yeah, I know.
Times. Monty Brown got like 5.
He died too, Garza. That's another one that died.
No, Hector Garza's still alive. He was just on Impact last week.
No, that's somebody else.
No, Hector Guerrero died.
Yeah, no, Hector Guerrero's the one that's alive. Garza's dead.
No, Hector Garza's alive.
No, he's
Are
dead.
you sure?
I swear to God, he died.
And Taz is a moron because the Spanish
absolutely. Don't listen to Taz. That's the last person you want to listen to.
Either he or Tenay last week pointed him out and identified him as Hector Garza.
Yeah, he's dead. But
So TNA is a dead man working for them, and it's not the Undertaker.
Sure. Eh, why not? It's TNA. They don't know what.
Wonderful.
They continuity is not a strong point in TNA.
No. That's a whole other issue for another day.
I could go on for hours, but
instead of Where in the World was Carmen Sandiego, I play Where in the World was Matt Morgan. How is a 7-foot monster with a beard that hard to find?
Exactly, and why does he have like little arms and? Oh God. With territories though, when you look at them. You had Texas, you had Florida, New York,
South.
I mean, you had all, and it was amazing. Each territory had
California.
Yeah,
was one. Their whole, because I mean, it's one of the largest states in the country. They have their own gigantic hotspot.
I mean, and all these territories had at least 40 to 50 guys, and it was just pools of talent. It was unbelievable. When you look at these independents, yeah, there's talent, but everyone's kind of cookie cutter, and you've seen it once. You've seen it all.
Guy that is in shape that was like. Had a like for wrestling and was able to get themselves in shape, put in the time, but they have another job.
Exactly.
Like a lot of them. And, it's almost like high school and college recruiting, A lot of the territories back in the day, they pulled from what they had. And, sometimes more areas were more rich in wrestling talent just because of the athletes that grew up there or, the occupations or whatnot or the certain look. And, others were kind of out of luck. But in Minnesota, you really wouldn't expect to get a whole wealth of pro wrestling talent. But I mean, a lot of these guys were farm workers and everything growing up, so they had the athletic background and whatnot. So it was just a matter of transitioning and learning how to get a look and getting polished.
Well, here's something that's interesting too. Like independents, they're not really strong anywhere.
And they don't have any heritage.
No.
Territories had, second, third generation guys. I'm not talking, people that are second, third generation now. I'm talking way back when.
Or they had like a belt that was back in like the NWA or AWA, something like that. A lot of the territories like Texas and all that, they were just part of the NWA. But, you look at territories today, they have their own belts. I mean, the independents today, they're all cookie cutter. They all have their own belts. It's a mess.
And they'll identify it as a world title. And, this thing's never been defended out of the state.
Yeah, where? Well, here's what's interesting, too. The AWA is pretty much toe-for-toe with WWF on one level, and that's exposure. They were pretty much well-known everywhere, and I'll tell you why. ESPN.
Yeah.
They had that television.
Contract, and as a matter of fact, they, to this day, ESPN On Demand will still play classic wrestling occasionally, and it'll all be AWA stuff.
Exactly.
It'll only be, certain stars, mostly ex-WWF guys, but you still get to see it.
I mean, they had the exposure. I mean, ESPN for that time, that was pretty big for them. And, that's like being on
ESPN,
USA for
ESPN
WWF.
is not the level back then that it is now, but...
It was exposure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And they were
still affiliated with ABC.
And they were on 4 or 5 o'clock every day. So, who's going to watch that? Kids. Yeah. So, I mean, you got the audience. That was strong for them.
It was just a matter of them not being able to change to the times, and that was the biggest problem.
Well, and the problem, too...
And getting pilfered of talent.
Yeah, I mean, they were getting... Left and right, those guys were leaving. But then you look at the NWA, they were only strong within their area, like, Virginia, Georgia, Carolina, yeah, Ohio maybe. But when they would come around Pittsburgh and all that, not so much. But they were always on TBS, which was all over the country as well. And they had like 5 or 6 programs a weekend.
And other than Texas, we never really saw any of a group of the western states other than California. We never really saw great western wrestling, We had Mid-South and we had Texas, but we really didn't get... those other states that much. Yeah,
because when Gagne took care of most of that, and then Texas was just Texas. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there was someone. I mean, Oregon, they had Portland wrestling, but who I never watched it because it wasn't on here.
Well, one of our famous alumni that Billy Jack Hammond.
Oh, right.
Credit him for Portland wrestling. That's where he got his start.
God bless you, Billy Jack. But
stay healthy, Billy Jack.
Yeah, come on. I want another shoot interview.
We don't want to lose you.
Who did in the 80s? No. But when the territory system started crumbling thanks to Vincent Killer McMahon, no pun intended, I mean, you could see just the end of an era, and it's such a shame because all that talent, has nowhere to work now. And you can see that within, when watching the independents and all that, you can see that where, things like that are just killing wrestling. You don't have a place to train. You don't have a place to sharpen your skills. You kind of have to go to WWF, TNA, or somewhere like that in their training programs.
I mean, you can get trained locally, but the problem is, you got to balance your savings, and then say you get an opportunity to go to a tryout, you got to balance your travel expenses, and then, you're also putting your future with your current wrestling company at risk because they don't want you leaving for a tryout. They're not just going to be like, oh, if you fail, you can come back.
Yeah, I mean, and when it comes down to it, if an independent wrestler is going to train you, you're not going to get the knowledge like you would of a Funk, like one of the Funks, or...
Well, I mean, you might and you might not. I mean, they might be able to teach you the basics, but in terms of creating a gimmick and creating a character and ring psychology, they're not going to be able to do as much.
No, they're not going to be able to train you like the Gagnes would, or someone else from another territory. You're not going to get that.
Somebody is a great in-ring competitor, just like if they're a great player, doesn't mean that they could be a great coach or mentor.
Exactly.
I would love to get taught by Flash Funk, but I don't know necessarily if... I mean, he's a bad example. I think he'd be a good teacher.
Absolutely.
But, just because he was working with some pretty green guys, and he put on a 4 or 5 star match.
You'd want to be trained by the Malenkos in Florida. You wouldn't want to be trained by... Joe Blow that works at 7-Eleven on the weekend shift.
Well, the biggest thing, too, is you need to be trained by somebody with your body type and stature. You getting trained, for example, by one of the cruiserweights, that's
not
180 pounds and trying to teach you some of the moves isn't going to work.
No.
Same as, me getting trained by Shirley Doe.
Yeah.
I don't want to do hardcore wrestling anyway, so that's not going to work. Plus, I still have the body of a fashion model. I'm not quite big enough yet.
Well, yeah, it's just tough when you have that. When you don't have that body type, it doesn't sometimes it doesn't match up. But a good wrestler, though, no matter what body type, they'll be able to train you. That's one thing I think. But what do I know? But I mean, territories. They had a following, they had an audience. Sometimes they didn't have to be on TV. They could get the fans there. Nowadays, independence, it's just, it's poor promotion, it's poor production, it's poor wrestling in general, and it's poor like timing, and it's poor advertising. It's just they don't have what the territories did. They didn't have that strong fan base. They can't get a fan base. They can't even promote a fan base. I'll see shows where I'll go. There'll be 10 or 15 people there. I'm like,
who's trying to promote? And they're the same exact people you see every time. It's like, oh, there's Crazy Sign Girl. There's the heavyset girl who gets on the chair and screams all the time.
It's poor promotion. You have to really dig and find these companies when they should be expanding to the fans. You have Facebook. You have MySpace. You have Twitter. You have YouTube. You have all these
It's like, I
networks.
You're 0.7 miles from my house, yet I see no one else from my area.
Yeah, like who's promoting these things? I mean, geez, they need people to get out there. They need a street crew.
We have a website. Yeah, the problem is all your advertisements for your website are in the arena where only the people in the arena are going to see them. You're not getting them any exposure. Yeah, you might have your own YouTube feed, but who in the world is going to watch some random wrestler's promo they've never heard of unless it's really bad or really good? And it's never going to be really good.
And like these independents, they really don't give you wrestlers that are like a Sting or like a Dusty Rhodes or like a Ric Flair. You don't get that. You get like some dude.
I've never seen anybody that had their own thing. I've seen a lot of independent guys that they have star potential because they remind me of someone else.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Like I remember back in PWX, no disrespect to this guy if he's listening, there was a guy named Blade. Not the Empire Hunter or whatnot.
Yeah.
He looked like Shawn Michaels. And that was his whole gimmick. He dressed like Shawn Michaels. He had like the white, leather pants and the black jacket and the long earrings and whatnot. And, he was a really popular wrestler, but because he looked exactly like Shawn Michaels, I never really was able to get... I mean, when I was young, I was able to, understand his character, but now I would just look at him and be like, okay, that's an HBK ripoff.
Isn't that a problem? So, like, you want to develop your own character, your own person, your own style, and that's the thing, too, that's missing. Individual styles. Like, when you had someone from Texas, their style is different from someone from Minnesota. When you had someone that came from Memphis, their style was different from someone in New York, or someone from Japan was different from someone from Germany. You had all these different styles. Like, now they're all cookie cutter. A lot of these guys are just do 20 flips in a row, and it's horrible, and it's just like, you don't get, like, that charisma and that different type of flavor anymore.
Well, it's also hard to do because you don't have a lot of medium-sized tweener guys that can work with both weight classes.
It seems like it's one or the other.
Right,
that's
it. I see a lot of, 400-pound guys that can, well, not 400-pound, maybe like 280-pound, but the volume is like 340 that can't go.
Yeah.
And then I see a lot of, 165-pound guys that they built as 200-pounders that aren't able to work a good match psychologically with the bigger guys just because they don't know. Number one, they can't knock them off their feet no matter how hard they try, even when the big guy sells. And number two, it just doesn't look convincing enough.
I'm tired of all these fake martial arts kicks and all that crap, and I'm tired of all the flips. I don't want to see that. Like, one cruiserweight match is enough for that. Not everybody doing that.
Wrestling moves. I don't need to see you getting punched in the face or kicked all the time because it's not a striking match. It's wrestling.
Unless you're Mortis, Glacier, or the Repo Man, I don't want to see kick pads anymore. I'm tired of it. Sorry, it's my little pet peeve.
Sting used to have kind of like kick pads built into his pants when he was in the Wolf Pack.
Yeah. But, jeez. That just looks so cheesy to me, like kick pads. Like, you're not a martial artist. Why are you wearing them? Like, Ken Shamrock, I understood.
Well, they do protect your shins, though.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing you want to do is get your shins, or if you knock knees. I mean, you could tear a meniscus just by doing that, knocking knees with your opponent at the wrong time.
That's gotta hurt.
Well, I mean, they go to do a high knee lift, and, you're supposed to flip over, and both of your knees catch one of theirs.
Oof.
You could hurt yourself or them, so it's better to be padded up like that.
Get so weak in the knees. Sorry. I mean, WWF, I have a feeling they're going to, they try to do their own little territory thing with this Florida wrestling, but, it's just a training thing, it's not...
You know what is actually...
It can be their way.
You know what's become a territory in and of itself, but it doesn't really have an identity? Because it's spilled over into so many different promotions right now? Chicago.
Oh, yeah?
Because think about it. Chicago is like the one bizarro world where... they don't care about what WWE is trying to feed them. They go their own way.
Yeah.
They cheer, whether I like it or not, they cheer for people like Ziggler. They cheer for Daniel Bryan. They boo the hell out of Cena. in any other city where, people like Cena and Triple H and everything would get a lot of applause and whatnot, they value more the pure wrestler rather than a gimmick or, anything else like that.
Yeah, that'd be a great place.
They have more passion and they care a lot more for, and that's ROH's thing too.
Well, here's the problem too. Like, if you actually try to start your own territory or area, McMahon, if he sees that you have talent, he's gonna try to buy them away. That's what's tough. It's almost like you have to be a multimillionaire just to start in this business.
Well, what he can do is, he can just dare you just by offering them a tryout. Okay, go ahead, release them. If we like them, we'll take them. If we don't care. They'll be out on the street, but you'll be out of your top guy.
Yeah. I think like a lot of these independents, they need to go they need to go like besides gyms and stuff. Start going to nightclubs. Start going to like Hard Rock Cafe, bigger arenas. Trying to expand. Pittsburgh's a great market for that.
Well, or whenever you have like these comic book conventions or these horror conventions, a lot of the fans are kind of like the same type of people. They kind of like a lot of the same stuff. That's why I saw like a lot of wrestlers at horror conventions and things, because they tried branching out into that because it's a related entertainment field. And comic books, kids and everything. I don't see what harm it is to pull some money together and say a table's $200. Well, put some of your big guys there and then have them hand out a bunch of like pens with your logo on it or whatnot and tell them to come see the show because the people are coming to the Pittsburgh Convention Center from the surrounding areas. They're like Monroeville. Say you want to do a show in Monroeville and they have the comic book show, have a local promotion, get a contingent of their most popular guys, their most friendly people, like all the good guys, and have them go out and promote it. That'd be a good way to do it.
These independent guys should be local celebrities. They should be on television. They should be on radio. They should be all over. But They're never promoted at all.
No, they're not. And they could, they could do something like that, or like any community event, like a fair or whatnot. They could have a table set up. I'm sure the people wouldn't care.
Yeah, I know, man.
All you need to do is just ask the people running, hey, is it okay if, I talk to some of the, members of the community and whatnot and hand out some flyers and whatnot? I'm not trying to sell them anything.
It's just poor promotion. These local independent guys could be stars if they had the right marketing and the right tools behind them, but they don't. And it's obvious because no one knows anything about anybody.
Well, here's the other big problem, too. Money. Because you don't have anybody in marketing or in communications like me. I'd love to work for a wrestling company, but if one of the local ones comes at me and they're like, hey, you want to do commentating? Not for free. Hey, do you want to do write-ups for us and you want to do interviews? Not for free.
Yeah,
so if they don't want to pay me, I don't want to do it. As much as I have a passion for the business, I need to make my money at the end of the day.
And that makes sense too. Yeah, a lot of them want favors and all that. That.
Like I have a friend that only works one night a month for like $40 doing commentating, and I'm like, well, that's great, but don't you have any other job? Well, no, not yet.
Isn't that the difference to money? Like territories, the payoffs are so much bigger than independents. Independent, if you're lucky, you make $20 unless you're a main eventer. Territories, you could make a couple grand a week.
Right. Yeah.
With the TV and the fan base and the marketing and all that, and the T-shirts, whatever they sold then.
Really, all of your money was just going to housing, working out and eating. You didn't really, unless you had a family at the time, that was the tough thing too.
Yeah.
Whenever the territories, they required more travel than the independents, then you couldn't really have a second job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people want to wrestle down in Florida because you're by the beach, or by California. By the beach, it's warm, it's nice, it's a better.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, instead of going like Minnesota or like Canada,
Or even Pennsylvania during the winter.
Yeah, it's cold. Yeah, I would go to Florida in a heartbeat for it, territory. Why not?
I'd go to Florida for the same job I'm doing now.
Yeah. But territories compared to independents, there's no comparison. Territories win just because the money, the stars that came in and out and they made, just the overall quality was just so much better than what you see today. It's so flim-flam, and everybody wants to be a promoter and everybody wants to be a wrestler. So it's like cookie cutter, and it's like every corner someone's trying to come out and be a wrestler.
Because of technology and everything, I don't think we're ever going to really see territories in a sense again. Because it's just going to be too hard for them to formulate a good, solid fan base without losing too many people and, being able to maintain steady interest.
And the thing that kills you, too, is like McMahon's WWF was a territory at the time, WWF, and they were just about as equal on an equal basis, Texas and the AWA and the NWA, and they won because McMahon saw what he wanted to do. He had a vision. He wanted to go global and international and all that, and he did. But
I can't blame Vincent Kennedy McMahon for that.
He was a thinker.
Yeah, it was shrewd, and whatnot.
Visionary.
You need to make money. It's about you. Yeah, you're going to put some people out of business, but you're also going to get relationships with some of the top talent. So, I mean, you got to do what you have to do.
But was it worth it in the end, you wonder? I mean...
Well, I mean, for me, always being a WWF guy, in my mind, yes, but then it's kind of like the Roman Empire now towards the end, where things have just gotten so bad and they've just gotten so lazy
because you don't get that Memphis
trying, because there are only certain times a year that they try.
Exactly. You don't get that Memphis type of wrestling. You don't get Texas wrestling anymore. You don't get AWA wrestling anymore. Those styles, it's all gone. Quality.
I would still get a quality match when I went to a WWE live event.
Live.
I'm not talking about a Raw. Now, it used to be if I watched Monday Night Raw, I'd get a 15 to 20 minute main event match, not counting entrances. Now, I get a 5-minute match.
And they can do that to you.
And it starts at 10:50, and I'm like, but, you're putting this on TV for your audience, but you think just because you have all these viewers and whatnot, you can end the show on an interview segment?
They know they can because they got you, or they got other people.
When's the last time you saw an independent wrestling or a live event or anything end on an interview?
Never.
Or something stupid like that, or just a stupid stare down.
Never.
They made it too much about entertainment. They made it too much like a TV show, and it's just dumb. I mean, it is a TV show, but still.
All those territories are gone. All those styles and the way they do things, it's all over. So, at one point, the Von Erichs could have taken down WWE, and they could have went, national, but they didn't. AWA definitely could have in the early 80s. They could have went national, and they would be around. NWA never really could until the 90s because they just were too small.
Right.
Not NWA at a whole, but the NWA, the Crockett's, they could never go national. They were just too small. They were smaller than AWA at the time. But in the 90s, they did, and look how that was. That still would be in business if Turner would have, whoever would have managed it right.
Yeah. And Time Warner would have managed their money a little better. But then again, that's a topic for another day too. Talking about how when corporations get involved, how it can screw up an entire wrestling industry.
You look at ECW too; they never really had money, but they were like the last of the independents. Really, they were part of the NWA. They broke off.
They were able to do so much just from a marketing and creative standpoint, just because the guys that they had talent, and they would make the T-shirts and whatever, and do the interview shoots in somebody's basement, but it would work.
It's amazing. It was a homegrown product. That was like your last successful territory.
And Taz, who never had any art school training, designed a lot of the slogans and all the logos and everything for the shirts, which I thought was really interesting.
And people would find that show no matter what, and they had this incredible fan base and that cult. That's what a lot of those territories had. Those fans would die for those guys, and you just don't have that anymore. TNA,
I mean, in ROH you do, but I mean, you can tell, as casual observers, that they're nowhere near as good as they were.
No. I think this was a good talk.
I think so, absolutely. I'm Peck.
I'm Chris. Good night.
Good night.